Hi guys, it's me, Addie, and today I have some Let's Not Meet stories for you. Also, my apologies for not having a video last week. Not even one. I had a raging headache about the whole week. It was horrible. A nightmare even. But we're back and better than ever. So, let's just go ahead and jump in. I don't really have much to say today. This first one is titled, Met a Girl on a Flight, Now I Feel So Paranoid. 2 weeks ago, I flew home for vacation. I work abroad. During boarding, I was struggling to get through the crowded aisle trying to find my seat when a girl suddenly stood up and told people to move so I could pass. At first, I didn't even realize she was talking to me. When I finally got through, she smiled and said she was trying to help. I thanked her and thought that was the end of it. After landing, we randomly ran into each other again at the airport. We started chatting about the flight, normal small talk at first. She looked very modest and religious, wearing a cross and conservative clothes, so I assumed she was just a polite, kind person. But the conversation quickly got very personal. She started asking deep questions. Where I live, what I do, if I live alone, whether I have a girlfriend or wife. I answered casually and asked her about her, too. She said she lives alone and only has her grandmother back in that country. Then things started getting weird. Was that not already weird? On the shuttle bus from the plane to the terminal, she stood extremely close to me, like shoulder to shoulder close. Then she opened her phone gallery and started scrolling through photos, including nude photos of herself, in a way that made it very hard not to see. I didn't know if it was intentional or not, but it felt deliberate. I was confused, but I brushed it off. At baggage claim, she asked for my Snapchat. Actually, she insisted on giving me hers. We talked a bit more and had a friendly goodbye, and that was it. For 2 days, I kept thinking about the whole situation. Curiosity got the better of me, so I messaged her. She replied instantly. Like instantly. From there, the conversations got very flirty very fast. She spoke in a seductive, confident way that honestly pulled me in. At the same time, she kept asking one specific question over and over. When are you flying back? At first, I answered vaguely, but she kept repeating it every few days. She also offered to help my career. I'm a pharmacist. By connecting me with doctors and research articles. It felt strangely intense for someone I met once. At one point, she jokingly asked if I planned to marry. I played along and joked back. The conversation got more sexual and eventually she sent me explicit photos after I stupidly encouraged it. That's on me. But right after that, she again asked when I'd be flying back. That's when something flipped in my head. Suddenly, the whole situation felt wrong. Too pushy, too calculated, too interested in my movements. I snapped at her and told her it wasn't her business. She started texting rapidly, trying to calm me down, but I ignored her. A few days later, I blocked her. Then it got worse. The next day, a new account messaged me on Instagram claiming to be her mother. I don't know how she got my Instagram username. She said I misunderstood her daughter, that she was crying, that she even prepared professional articles to help me. The tone and writing style felt exactly like the girl herself. Then, she sent me a drawing of her daughter supposedly made of me. That honestly freaked me out. I told the account to stop contacting me and blocked it too. But the last message before I blocked them, just tell me when you're flying back. Now I'm flying next week and I can't shake the paranoia. I know logically she shouldn't be able to know my flight, but the persistence and intensity of this whole thing has me feeling like I stepped into some weird psychological movie plot. Maybe it's nothing, maybe she's just unstable, maybe it's some kind of scam attempt, but I've never had an encounter escalate this strangely from a random flight meeting. Has anyone ever experienced something like this before? Am I overthinking, or does it actually sound as creepy as it feels? This sounds like limerence or something. Like it's either it kind of sounds like trafficking a little bit, but everything sounds like trafficking to me. But yeah, no, it's creepy how she became obsessed immediately. Top comment says, I had a friend that was being stalked and didn't know that how the person found that information until one day she realized her Snapchat was sharing that info to her friends. Triple check you're not doing the same. Maybe the reason she wanted your snap is because she knew the same info and would follow you back to the airport. Maybe she wants to make you a drug mule or something. Be careful out there. OP says, I made every account I have private and double checked all the privacy options. Another commenter says, she said she only has her grandmother, but her mother messaged you. If she's lying, that's not good. I'd be very careful. Lock down your socials. Make sure your phone number, full name, family and friends' names, place of work, etc. are all hidden from public view. Can you do any of your own research to find more about who she is without contacting her? I'm paranoid, but my mind goes from robbery to organ harvesting, etc. Listen to your gut. If you feel like something is off, it probably is. You could move your flight sooner or later than originally planned, or consider flying out of and or into a different airport if possible. In my opinion, your primary risks are her finding more info about you online, her waiting at the airport for you to leave, or waiting at the airport when you get back. So do as much as you can to mitigate those risks. Consider changing airports, departing, arriving, or both. If you can't do that, change your schedule to be less predictable. Fly at an off time or a different time than your previous flight. Listen to your gut. OP says, yeah, reschedule the flight. That's a brilliant idea. I didn't really think about it. And about changing it, I don't know. Should I change it now or just a day or two before the flight? I really don't know. I feel like I'm not thinking straight. And about her mother, she already told me where she lives with her mom and dad, but back in the country I work in, she said she only lives with her grandmother. I don't know. Maybe she's lying about that too. Maybe you're right. She's definitely lying. She's lying. Probably everything she has said is a lie. And then OP comments, I've been thinking, if I see her on the plane next week, I'll probably grab my phone and start recording with a voice memo just in case. I want to be prepared when I land. I don't know. Part of me feels like this could be some kind of scam, like she might try to accuse me of something, or maybe she has people waiting for me, or maybe she's just unstable. Honestly, I really don't know what to think, and I could use some advice. And then someone comments under that and says, I don't think she's scamming you. I think she's just really into you and acting extremely inappropriate about it. It's not super hard finding people's social handles, by the way. It also takes very little effort to figure out where a person went to school and their work history just from their name and the city they live in. In the US, depending on the state, it's super easy to find phone numbers, names of spouses, and addresses. It's not genius level shit. Just block her. If she messages again from another fake account, tell her you do not want her contacting you further. If she escalates, then report. And then another person says, don't delete any of the messages. Take screenshots of everything and back them up somewhere just to be safe. Do not engage at all. Take screenshot, then block. And then a lot of the comments are saying that she could be wanting him to be like a drug mule or something. But I do find it kind of odd that he at first was like, this is freaky, and then like started egging her on. That's such a man thing to do. This was posted 12 hours ago, so I doubt there's much of an update. Let me just check. No. There is no update. But I hope OP's okay. That is really freaky. And I hope he never meets her again. Because for real. Gross. This next story is called Psychopath X and Her Family of Flying Monkeys. Gagged. This was back in 2022, but I still think about it sometimes. I was a 24 male, naive, and was fighting with my father. I was still fighting a mental health battle and had no idea just how messed up I still was. My whole life I was groomed just to take over the house when he dies and was put down and anything else I wanted to do. Anything else besides the grind was unnecessary, no getting a degree, or building a career, no extracurriculars in school or clubs. Being 70, you would think he'd have some wisdom from the life he lived. Lessons to be learned, but he was just an aggressive liberal who thought everyone but him was stupid, would make friends out of Republicans just so he can get high and bully them, would assume I didn't know how to do something if he hadn't taught me, and would call me a thief if I ever defended myself. We were fighting a lot lately, and I just wanted to move out and go be independent. I've been working factory jobs for years and could afford it. Eventually, I got a message from this girl I knew. She was the first person I ever dated. I knew her for 12 years in total, but we disconnected for 8 of them. She said she was in the area and wanted to reconnect. She had just gotten out of a toxic relationship. I wasn't aware of just how bad her life was yet. We spent time together. My father hated her. I had problems with her family a lot, jumped by her brother in high school at times, and there was a feud. But she moved out early on and was always the reasonable, empathetic one. She seemed okay. There's times I look back now and cringe how I thought I knew how the world worked. My father hated her and refused to let her be around me, but refused to elaborate what red flags he was seeing, because I said you so personality. I'm so confident that if he had explained it to me, I might have at least listened. But I was just so over his toxicity. The put downs, treating me like I was the R word, and I'm not saying that. I went to stay with her and her family for a few days. After the back and forth over text, he eventually said he wanted me gone, so I moved in with them. I'm trying really hard not to comment on this person because I want to get through their story and hear their story, but just from what I've read so far, I don't like him. Don't think anything bad should have happened to him, but I don't like him. Sorry, OP. They wasted no time convincing me that he was manipulative and controlling, that he was using me, that my dog, who showed signs of trauma since I got him from the puppy mill, was probably being abused by him. They seemed so nice and welcoming, so supportive. It was her adoptive mother, her stepfather, her stepbrother, and her bio father was still in the picture. I now have no idea who that other family was to her. They told me odd things that other family members would confirm. Her bio father was an FBI agent. He was a compulsive liar is what he was, and her family was all his flying monkeys. They convinced me that they had ties to organized crime and had multiple people confirm it too. I'm truly ashamed of how I let that one go. The stepfather was a friend of the bio father and had this Tony Soprano air about him. These were red flags galore, and I acknowledged them. But my hands were tied, and the door was closed behind me. This felt like my life now. Girlfriend would, over the course of 4 months, start fights between me and the mother. Make up things she would do, make up things I would do, try to start things every chance she'd get. She made it seem like it was me and her against them. I was close with the stepdad. He seemed real enough, cried in my arms when his uncle died, called me his son, treated me like one. But things were stressed. Toxic ex, who was his actual son, came back into the picture, and I hated that. Whoa. So her stepdad. She was dating her stepbrother? Okay. I guess it's legal. Toxic ex, who was actually his son, came back into the picture, and I hated that. I had to coexist. She was obviously cheating, and when I went to leave, they told me she was pregnant and showed me the test. Told me that if I walked away, I'd get my jaw broken. Then put it into concrete shoes and dropped in the canal. Oh my God. I was now surviving. I was having a hard time getting a job, and the bio father pretended to pull some strings, and suddenly I got accepted packing ice cream in the distribution center of a popular gas station. The money was good, but mentally I was absent. I lasted a month. But I was sitting in the car out front every morning, and sometimes I would laugh, then scream and cry. Then it felt like I was full of sand. I lost the job because I was getting clumsy and dropped an iron magnet that cost $10,000 and broke it. After I got fired, I was fully convinced I would be murdered by the bio father, as I was told by the family I would be. Eventually, the ex ran off to be with her ex. What? And I sat down and talked with the family. We all compared notes about what happened and clicked everything together. and they seemingly turned against her for the monumental chaos she brought. She pushed my mental health so much that they almost convinced me to admit myself into the psych ward. They would let me snap and then act like I'm abusive. They disowned her and apologized for everything. Let me stay for a while. I was now an alcoholic and everything just hurt. Getting blackout drunk every night when I did leave and go back to my father's. It was a few months before the adoptive mother called me, screaming about how I'm saying I slept with her apparently, and not to worry about how she heard about it. Turns out the ex had been calling them and saying lies about me, and they never disowned her. I had done a lot of research into manipulation and dark psychology by now. I know what they did to me. I blocked them all and changed my numbers and profiles. I have 27 profiles for the same 3 people blocked on Facebook. And I still to this day see faces in the crowd that look familiar and forget how to break. After a year of drinking to die, I quit oh my gosh, this is so hard to read. This is written so poorly. I'm sorry. I am. But I'm just stumbling over everything because there's periods in random spots. There's capitalization randomly. My brain, I can't. Okay. After a year of drinking to die, I quit cold turkey. Period. I'm happy for you for that, actually. Got a better job, got my credit score up to 678, and paid off most of my debt. The ex used to lie about liking my singing, but now I don't need validation on it. She had a baby shortly after leaving, and I, to this day, don't know if it's mine or not. I refuse to find out because I know the lengths she'd go to get money with no contact. I omitted so many more things they did. And I know now if they were in organized crime and in the FBI, they wouldn't have told me about it. I still look over my shoulder because I know they know where I live. I live with my father again. We still fight relentlessly, but I understand him more. To the inhumane nightmare that showed me how easy I was to take advantage of, let's never meet again. Woo! This was rough. I feel really bad for this OP because the OP just sounds miserable. It's so sad. And I do hope they're in a better spot, but also don't say the R word because that is so not in. And yeah, never do that again. Never get with a family like this again because they are baddie. The top comment says, but the part where they almost convinced you to admit yourself into the psych ward is genuinely terrifying. I'm glad you saw through it eventually. Oh, true, because then it would have if they tried to do anything legally to the OP, then... OP says, I omitted so much too, from the confrontations that almost turned into knife fights between me and the ex, to watching her other adopted family snort coke off a mirror while I sat next to the door machete. Hear her dad confess about murdering someone, and even the time I drove to her friend's house with a bat because there was a domestic abuse issue. I got to see the lot lizard she became after we stopped talking years ago. What does that mean? Lot lizard. My biggest regrets are letting her tattoo me when we got drunk, and how I didn't put the pieces together. Sometimes I have nightmares about what happens if they ever come knocking and I have to play the self-defense game. I sometimes forget my little excuses for why it was so easy to manipulate me, and I legit bully myself for this stupidity and disregard any maturity I've made. Therapy is not working. Don't beat yourself up over that, because I feel like when you're around, it seems like there were a bunch of them and they were all crazy. So I think anyone in that situation would have a hard time if these people made you feel like they cared about you and they were all crazy and they all backed each other up on the weird stuff that they said. Then that was just a sticky sitch. A sticky sitch, I'll tell you that. This one is called, I am confident that I would have been hurt or even killed that night had I been leaving alone. This happened last night, almost 24 hours ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. I, 26 female hijabi, was alone. What was that? Oh, bless you. Sounded like something fell. I, 26 female, hijabi, was alone in an all-night fast food joint in a small town last night, about half an hour outside of my city, for about an hour and a half. I'd gone into town with my partner because we wanted to enjoy the drive there and back together, but he had stuff to do that I didn't accompany him for. I spent the time in town alone, journaling and nursing a drink in a booth at this restaurant. Edit. Because race was mentioned in the comments, I'm white, but ethnically I am quite ambiguous, especially when I'm veiling. I wonder if the dude was trying to clock my ethnicity because he probably couldn't have confidently guessed. For context, I was wearing a hijab in a town that has 8 churches and a population of 18,000. Oh, no, 1,800, not 18,000. So it's very small. I hadn't been particularly worried about it, but it's worth mentioning. It was also already dark when we got there about 6:30. At one point, a car had pulled up into the parking spot right next to my booth's window. I'd been there for like an hour, was deeply immersed in what I was writing, and was only pausing to sip the hot drink and crack my knuckles and stretch my hands. I noticed the car outside was pointing right at me and was running. It had its headlights on, but I didn't bother to really look until it flashed its high beams at me after 5 to 10 minutes. I glanced, thinking maybe my partner was waiting for me outside. It wasn't his car, so I went back to writing. I assume now that the flash was a test to see if I was paying attention to my surroundings. At some point later, I became aware of a dude standing between my booth and the counter, where someone might naturally stand and wait for their order, though I never saw him receive any food or drinks or anything. After I finished this paragraph I'd been writing, I looked up at him and he was staring, like totally staring, and had this fucked up way of looking at me. He looked at me like a fucking stain on a new pair of slacks, like he was angry at me, but his face and general energy were emotionless. Still, this stare was definitely hostile. He turned around. I went back to writing because I knew my partner was going to be showing up soon. The dude kept standing around. I could see him facing me again from the corner of my eye, and he soon moved to the other side of the restaurant where he was closer to being in my blind spot. I don't know if I can explain this, but there was a wall/partition between the corner where I was sitting and the other side of the dining area, so he needed to be basically in front of me or sort of behind me in order to see me from a distance. Had he been directly next to me and that far away, he would have been totally blind to each other. Or we would have been totally blind to each other, if that makes sense. He would have been behind this partition. Anyway, at this point, he's closer to the door than the counter, sort of behind where I'm sitting, but I can see him in my peripheral vision without fully turning my head. When I start packing my things, quickly, because I'm not fucking sticking around to talk to this guy, he starts slowly moving into the vestibule between the outdoor... What? He started moving slowly into the vestibule between the outdoor doors and indoor doors. I see him see me throw my garbage/leftovers in the trash and rush under my booth. I sit for a moment and check my phone before standing up, at which point I see him standing with his back to me, but with his head turned back towards me. I grab my parka and purse, at which point he steps outside and stands there, right in front of the doors, like he was blocking one door, but he left just enough room for someone to get past him. I would have had to get real close to him. Instead, I grabbed my stuff and went to the back of the restaurant and went into the bathroom, and I swear I caught him turning his head towards me when I started moving away from him. My partner texted me that he was there. I said I'd be right there, and I was just washing up. I left the bathroom, and this fucking guy is back inside, facing the doors like he was waiting for a ride or something. I walked right past him into the vestibule, and he was not subtle about staring as I did. Approaching the exterior doors, I saw him see me try to exit through the wrong door, which would normally be embarrassing, lol, but I was over it. And then he stayed turned towards me as I walked past the car that had blinked its high beams at me, which I assume was his car, and get into my partner's car. They were parked next to each other, but with one spot in between. My partner happened to have backed into a spot so the guy inside couldn't see who was driving from inside, just based on where the windows were. He could just see that I got into someone else's car, and he fucking watched me open the door, say hello, and then open the back door and throw my purse and parka in the back seat. For the first time since I caught him staring initially, I clearly looked right at him as I was getting in. He was looking right at me. We pulled out onto the highway and turned past the restaurant. Dude was still staring. Like, he was far enough away I couldn't see him, but I could see that his face was turned towards me under his hair and his hat. Hands still in his pockets like they had been the whole time. And again, at no point did I see him holding even a coffee cup, just standing there for half an hour or so, hands tucked away. Minutes later, a car had pulled up to us and was following us closely enough that anyone with anywhere to go would have just passed, instead of tailing. And then that car turned off of the highway soon after we left town. So my thought is that this guy was blinking his high beams at me to see how much attention I was paying, and then he waited for me to leave to see if I was getting into my own car and driving away alone. I think there were a couple other cars in the lot, which could have belonged to the employees. He could have intercepted me easily if another driver, my partner, hadn't been waiting in the lot next to the vehicle that I assumed belonged to him. It would have been so easy for him to pull me into his car with him because his car was right by the door to the restaurant. So from where he was standing just inside and outside of the doors, he could see the staff behind the counter, down the hallway to the bathrooms, the parking lot, and the turn in from the highway. He could also see if there was anyone else in the dining area, and I don't think there was. And I think that maybe he tailed my partner's car long enough to catch a glimpse of the driver's general shape/size and roughly confirmed whether the driver was a male, or he may have been following us long enough to get a look at the license plate. Which sounds far-fetched, but I'm not 100% sure this guy is a monster. Whatever he was thinking, I'm so thankful I didn't leave alone. Let's not meet, dude. No. That guy was creepy. He had evil intentions because the flashing of the high beams just immediately, red flag. Why do you do that to someone? How rude, honestly, to pull up to a restaurant with your headlights on and like have them shining on one person there. Turn them off. Someone says there's no mention of race, which OP edited in, but it sounds like you were in a sundown town and he was a local white supremacist / Klansman who was trying to intimidate you or potentially even harm you to get you to leave. Thank goodness you're safe. OP clarifies and says, thanks, and I actually think my ambiguity might have prevented him from being more overtly awful. I'm totally white, but I look ambiguous, especially in the summer. I tan very easily, and especially since I started veiling. If he'd been trying to clock my ethnicity, he probably couldn't have confidently guessed either way. I'm in Canada, so we don't really have Klansmen, but we do have our fair share of white supremacists and Christian fundamentalists. The mosque nearest to my home was actually vandalized with a swastika just a few days ago. Oh, that makes me ill. That makes me so ill. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with white people? For real. I'm speaking to my own. Let me talk to y'all. Start acting right. But I'm so glad that OP is okay. I'm glad their partner was there. And just in general, being a woman, be careful going to new towns by yourself. Like, even though your partner was with you, you were like stuck at that restaurant by yourself for a while. Just be careful. Just be careful, queen. This is the last one I'm going to read, and this title sounds really spooky. The title is, A man stopped me while I was walking home and told me he'd been looking to hurt someone all night, then followed me. What a nightmare. Hello, this is quite a long one, so apologies that it may take a while to tell. I do have to give a little bit of context also. I'm a 22-year-old female, but this story took place when I was 21. I live in a small town, and I work in a pub in the town center, i.e. 2 pubs, 2 small shops, and a bank. On my walk home, I walked past one of those shops, which also has a small bus shelter next to it. Buses run every hour-ish, but none run after 8 p.m. After that, it's just residential housing, and then my house near the end of that road. All in all, from my job and my house, it's about an 8-minute walk. My town is usually dead after 10 p.m. as everything is closed. And I would genuinely say it was relatively safe. I've never had a problem with walking home alone. This incident happened on New Year's Eve, going into New Year's Day, so the pubs were open later. I finished my shift at about 1:30 a.m., and me, my boss, boyfriend, and 2 other coworkers went to the pub next door for a drink before we went home. It was about 2:30 a.m. when I realized what time it was and that I needed to get home. My boyfriend lives on the other side of town, and I wasn't staying at his that night. My boss insisted on driving me home, and I kept insisting that he stays, as everyone else was enjoying themselves and talking about the Christmas period we had worked. Same with my boyfriend. He insisted on walking me home, but I was adamant that I was fine, and it is literally less than 10 minutes. Anyway, after a lot of pushback, I told them I was walking home. I really enjoy walking without headphones, having a cigarette, especially after a shift, because it genuinely is so silent and peaceful. I didn't pass or see anybody until I got to walking past the shop. Like I mentioned previously, there was a small bus shelter next to it, and as I got closer, I realized there was a man sat on the bench in the bus stop. Bear in mind, it's nearly 3 a.m., and even the pub we were at wasn't actually open anymore. They just let us in because we worked at the other pub. I didn't really think much of the man, but as I got closer, I realized I had served him at my shift earlier on in the night. He looked up as I was walking, and I realized he was sniffing some sort of drug, most likely powdered sugar. I don't know if I can say what it actually is, but from his keys. I didn't actually know who he was, and still don't, but he didn't seem threatening. He just looked like he was kind of chilling. Probably not the best choice of words. He did meet my eyes, though, and I was actually walking past the bus shelter. He said something along the lines of, "Sorry, darling, do you have a lighter I can borrow?" I was smoking as I was walking, so he knew I would have one. I stopped, and he was already walking towards me as I had. So I started digging one of the many lighters I had out of my bag. I was fully intent on just letting him keep it. I am not the type to stand with a 30-something-year-old man while he is lighting a cigarette. Then he asked me for a cigarette, but I had just lit my last one, which I said. During this whole interaction, he was very close to me, but I was kind of frozen in place. I'd realized that I'd stopped and was stood with a man in a dead street where nobody was around. I was still in the part of town where there isn't housing for another couple of minutes. And if anyone had come out of the pub, I was too far where they wouldn't have seen me. I just started mumbling something like, "Keep the lighter, I've got to go." But this man, who I had spoken to for about 20 seconds, told me to just stop a second. And where my feet had started to turn to walk, I stopped again. Oh my god, my nose is running. Side note, I know I should have just walked away, but I thought maybe it's innocent enough. And I didn't want to give a reason to provoke him if I just walked away from him. This time, his demeanor switched, and he wasn't very polite to start with. But it's like him telling me to stop made him realize that I was a young woman walking alone at this time of night. I genuinely still get chills thinking about what he said. He looked me up and down and said, "You know, I've been real angry, and I've been waiting for someone to hurt all night. You shouldn't be walking around here alone." My legs literally turned to jelly in that moment. I didn't even know if my phone was in my pocket or in my bag. I looked around and then said, "I'm not alone. My boyfriend is waiting for me around the corner, and I will be with him in a minute," and smiled. Just a bare-faced lie. My boyfriend was still in the pub and had no clue that this interaction was going on. I thought maybe I should walk back on myself and go back to the pub, but I just decided not to. My house was closer. The man smirked as if he knew I was chatting absolute bullshit and said he would walk with me to meet my boyfriend. There was no boyfriend waiting for me around the corner. I kept saying there was no need, but he was literally on my tail, rambling about how I don't understand him, I don't get it, I need to walk with him, he was going to hurt me. And this whole time, I kept thinking he was going to grab my hair or pull me to the ground, and that any minute he was going to realize there was no boyfriend waiting. I ended up pulling my phone out of my pocket, and it opened to our work group chat, and just typed a message about a man walking with me, realizing my phone was on 2% and thinking that I just wanted someone to know what was happening. I didn't dare go to call my boyfriend. This guy started mumbling about how I wasn't listening to him. By some miracle, when we turned around the corner onto my street, this guy didn't realize my boyfriend wasn't there. Or maybe he did, but he didn't say anything. He did up his behavior, though, and started spewing the most perverted stuff to me, saying about how I was a pretty young girl. I bet your boyfriend doesn't know how to handle you. Whole time I wasn't speaking, just speeding up and checking my phone discreetly. I realized that he was going to know where my house was, so I just thought, I'm going to have to pretend one of these houses are mine. Otherwise, I will be leading him right to my house, where my dad would be asleep in the back of the house, none the wiser. All of the houses on the street had a small gate and footpath leading to the door, so I chose a house with the light on and opened their gate. I turned to the guy and said, "This is me. See ya. Thanks for walking me," closing the gate behind me. I ran up to their door and shoved my key into the door that was not mine and prayed that this guy would leave and wouldn't wait for me to go inside the house. Thankfully, he didn't, and he started stumbling in the opposite direction, back down the street, away from where my actual house was, and what I thought was my only chance, I opened the gate and sprinted home. This guy clocked what I was doing instantly and started walking in my direction. By the time I got to my house, he had either not caught up quick enough or had given up. When I put my key in the door, I realized my dad had left his in the door internally, meaning I was locked out. I get my phone out, realized it had died in the time we were walking, so I just started banging on the door, and my dad let me in after a couple minutes. And that was that, but it was absolutely terrifying. I have not walked home alone since, and my boyfriend was so upset that he didn't push more and let him walk me home. Thankfully, I'm okay, and nothing physical happened to me. Some random guy that walked me home and said he was looking to hurt someone all night. Please, let's never meet again. No. It's scary too, because you said your house was 8 minutes away. The things that can happen in a minute and 30 seconds. Somebody commented and said, I had such a scary situation like that. My friend and I were walking to our car after going to a club in Miami Beach, and there was this guy that was following us. It was super late, and there was no one else around, and I was not very familiar with the area. I made the 3 or 4 left turns like I've read to do, and he was still following us, so I knew this was not just a coincidence. I started talking to my friend like I was a cop. I was telling her about how proud I was. I'm getting that perp that afternoon. What? I started talking to my friend like I was a cop. I was telling her about how proud I was. I'm getting that perp that afternoon. That's confusing me. And she realized and played along. He legitimately stopped following us after that, and I really think I probably saved our lives. Neither of us had purses, so he wasn't trying to rob us. It's so incredibly scary. So, it's such a sad world we live in, because, you just want to walk home alone, because it's so much more convenient. Like, I'm gonna just go. But no, you can't, because there's people like this out there. Mental health is such an issue. Houselessness is such an issue. I mean, no words, but I'm glad you're okay. And yeah, I think that was a good one to end on, because that was spooky. That spooked me good. I hope y'all enjoyed all of the stories I had today. They were all pretty long, so this should be like a decent length episode. Perfect for cleaning or getting ready in the morning. Gosh, what have I been up to? Oh, I'm going to pick out my wedding dress today. Or no, I'm not going to pick it out. I'm going to pick it up, because I already got it. but I'm going to pick it up today, and I'm really excited. I'm probably after this gonna go leave. Yeah, I'm gonna leave here and go hang out with my friends because it's my friend's wedding dress shop. She owns one, so I'm gonna go hang out with them and wait for my friend to come in. I'm so excited. Perfect timing. Valentine's Day just ended. My mom sent us these flowers. She said I had to share them. So I'm sharing them with everyone. I hope you enjoyed them. I took the girls' spot, and they're not very happy, so I'm going to have to move them after this. But I wanted y'all to see them. They're super cute. And what else? What freaking else? So we went to a science center in our town for Valentine's Day, and that was super fun. I'd been like once before when I was really young, but I didn't remember it at all. So we did that, and that was cute. And then we had chicken piccata for dinner. We just cooked at home because making reservations is just miserable. But yeah, it's been a good February so far. Knock on wood, I've really enjoyed myself. And I hope you guys have too. Please let me know down in the comments what you guys thought about these stories, if you enjoyed them. I feel like I read very poorly today, and I apologize for that. It's like my jaw feels tight and my brain's not working. But yeah. Okay. I'm done rambling this nonsense. Peace and love. Bye.